What is up, heroes? This is Midnight Zero, and welcome to a team builder for week 6 of the SFL. This week we were going to be going up against Caden of the Arkansas Araquanids, but we are instead going to be going up against Sarah because Caden dropped out of the league for personal reasons. I don't really know what her team name is now, but it's the exact same Mon, so there isn't confusion with team building and all that. But regardless, got a pretty solid team. And the biggest threat, the hardest thing to prep for, is the first Mon I'm going to show you, and that is his Mega Venusaur. This thing is so bulky. It's got so much bulk across the board, and I don't have a flying type. I don't have stab flying. I don't even have stab psychic, really. So the hardest thing I have to hit this with, really, is my Gengar with its psychic, and that's kind of it, which makes it really difficult because after Thick Fat, Infernape isn't even that helpful against this thing. So this thing is going to be a monster. It's so bulky, it can run offensive with HP Fire, Giga Drain, or Sludge Bomb. It can run defensive with sub, like Leech Seed, Synthesis. This thing is bulky. The next Mon is Weavile, something that really threatens my Gengar. This thing hits hard with knockoff. It's got solid priority with Ice Shard, and it's just so fast. So it outspeeds a lot of threats. Of course, it is weak to Bullet Punch and Mach Punch, so I don't know if he's really going to plan on bringing it, or she's really going to plan on bringing it. Next Mon is Dugtrio. Dugtrio is scary. It's a trapping Mon. And traps are scary. You really never know what to expect, especially because Sarah, I know she's not the greatest battler, so I can't really get into her head like I have been trying to do with Hyper Offense. But this thing is scary because Xurkitree just dies to it. Infernape just dies to it, so I'm really going to want to watch out for Dugtrio. Next Mon is Sylveon. I love Sylveon. I use Sylveon during the co-op league, and it is so bulky and it can hit so hard. It can boost up, it can wish pass. It's really versatile. Of course, I do have one of the strongest steel types in the game, in addition to a couple really strong poison types. So I don't know if she's gonna bring it, but if so, I should be really pretty prepared. Next Mon is Empoleon. Now Empoleon is really cool. It can set up rocks and defog, and it's got a really nice typing that allows it to tank some hits. In addition to having like a decent special attack, or like a pretty solid special attack stat, so it can fire off some nice Scalds, Defog, Stealth Rock, Flash Cannon maybe, I don't know. There's also of course Sub and I think Pecha Berry, so that you get into Torrent range and then you boost up, or send off like some super strong Hydro Pumps, etc. Anyways, it's a really good Mon. Next Mon is Buzzwole. Yes, Buzzwole. This thing is a beast. It's got that beast to boost, but I don't really know exactly how she plans on using Buzzwole. There are a couple popular sets going around: Sub Focus Punch, Leech Life Earthquake, Sub Bulk Up, Bandage, Scarf. Both of them, or all of those, are really big threats. And I don't have a Stab Flying type, so this thing was kind of scary to deal with. Next Mon is Delphox. Delphox is actually one of the Mons my team that I prepped is like relatively weak to. It's got a solid special attack stat and a decent speed tier, making it a prime Scarf user. So I'm definitely going to be one watching out. It's got great coverage in Fire, Fairy, and Psychic, in addition to like Grass even, for like Grass Knot and the like. So yeah, I'm going to need to be careful about Delphox. Next up is Minior. This Mon is interesting. It's a new Mon. It gets access to Shell Smash and Shields Down. Now I'm going to show you what Shields Down looks like. Look at those stats. That attack, that special attack, and that speed. This thing after a Shell Smash hits super hard. So I need to be careful to try and keep it in its regular Minior form so it can't actually do much damage after a Shell Smash, and so that I can just kind of OHKO it without having to deal with this monster. Next Mon is Kofagrigus. I hate prepping for Kofagrigus. This thing with Mummy is so annoying getting rid of abilities, and look at that defense. Obviously it's neutered by its HP stat, but this thing is so bulky. I am bringing a Drapion, and the Drapion's knockoff does like 40% to it. 40%! And that's coming off like a base 110 attack, I think. Yeah, Kofagrigus is really bulky. It can fire off some nice Hexes, Will-O-Wisps, Toxic Spikes, Shadow Balls, solid Trick Room, Nasty Plot Sweeper. It's got a lot of potential. Next up is Electivire. Now, Electivire's got a solid physical attack stat, but its special attacking pool is a lot better from a coverage standpoint. So a lot of people will run Life Orb mixed sets with Earthquake, maybe Wild Charge or Thunderbolt, or HP Ice or Grass Knot, maybe Flamethrower as well. So I really actually want to be careful about this thing because it could put in a lot of work and it resists Priority Bullet Punch. Next up is Skuntank. This is another one I want to be very careful for. It's a defogger. It's got solid stab, sucker punch. It can run pursuit, so I need to be careful with my Gengar. It can also run a lure set that typically runs Fire Blast. But yeah, in a nutshell, Skuntank is really threatening to my Gengar and my Scizor, surprisingly. And it's helpful for getting rid of hazards that will be pretty important for me. The next mon is Pyukumuku. Now, I actually really like Pyukumuku. It's 100% stop by taunt. Literally no physically or specially attacking moves. It just sponges hits and deals back damage. It can psych up to copy boost. It can baton pass for momentum. It can counter or it can mirror coat. Its ability innards out means that when it dies, you lose the killer loses the same amount of HP as the HP the damage it did to kill it. So it's kind of scary, and I need to be careful about potentially accidentally sacking one of my own mons to kill Pyukumuku. And then the last mon is Fracture, which is pre-evolution of Haxorus, and it's got a solid attack stat, access to Dragon Dance, obviously some bulk with a Violite, so it can hit hard and it's not bad. Well, it's not that great, but it's certainly not too bad, and it couldn't put in work, so I'm going to want to watch out for that. So getting into my team, the first mon I'm bringing is Mega Scizor. You'll notice I'm running an Adamant Nature with Bullet Punch, Bug Bite, Swords Dance, and Roost. If you look at my EV spread, I've got just enough attack to 2-hit KO a Bug Bite, or to 2-hit KO Mega Venusaur that's relatively defensive at +2 after rocks, because that's one of the few things I have to hit Mega Venusaur super hard with. The HP I have also is so that I'm guaranteed to live from full a Mega Venusaur's Hidden Power Fire if it's modest max special attack. So I live that with 2 HP. The speed is there so that I outspeed a relatively defensive, the Smogon suggested set on Mega Venusaur, and then the rest goes into Spadef to potentially, to optimize the HP in the Spadef EVs for taking that HP fire. So yeah, in general, this thing hits super hard. Bullet Punch after +2 after some rocks, it can do 40-50% to even resisted mons. So if I get things chipped down a little bit, it can definitely sweep late game. Bug Bite, all the same. And earlier in the game, depending on what mons she brings and what moves they have, this thing can wall a decent number of mons, such as Doug Trio and the like. So I do get opportunities to roost off damage or to SD, which could lead to a late game sweep. The next mon is Xurkitree. We're bringing a modest Choice Scarf Xurkitree. This thing hits hard. When you look at its moveset, we're running, max special attack, almost max speed, just outspeed whatever we can, really scarfed. I think we outspeed, what's the fastest mon on her team again? I think it's, we outspeed Doug Trio, or Doug Trio and Weavile, that's what we outspeed. And Thunderbolt hits everything, pretty decently. Volt Switch is there for momentum, which will be really important in building up chip damage and the like. Energy Ball is there to hit Doug Trio so that thing can't get in for free. Dazzling Gleam is there for Buzzwole, and depending on the situation, which Pokemon she brings, which Pokemon are still alive, Energy Ball or Dazzling Gleam might be a good way to end with a sweep. So yeah, this thing can also take a Scald from Empoleon and threaten it out, of course. Obviously, it can't take multiple Scalds, so it might just be a one-time switch in, but yeah, Xurkitree should be able to put in work. Next mon is Infernape. I love using Infernape. It's got a Expert Belt. It's running Naive so that we increase our speed without reducing our attack or our special attack. And that's because Flamethrower is guaranteed to OHKO Buzzwole. And that was one of the main reasons I brought this. It's to KO Buzzwole. It does 30% to a defensive Venusaur, which is pretty funny. Close Combat does a ton to, well, as you'd expect, Weavile. It does a ton to Empoleon. It OHKOs Empoleon if it's specially defensive. And Earthquake will do a ton to Electivire. It will do a ton to Skuntank. And it'll do a lot to Delphox as well if it's not Scarf. We have enough speed IVs or EVs to outspeed a max speed Delphox, but not a Scarf one. So we could even use this to scout for that. Mach Punch is there for potentially a Doug Trio. If Doug Trio switches in, I EV this so that Flamethrower or Earthquake into Mach Punch KOs Doug Trio. So yeah, so he can't even switch in Doug Trio anticipating oh, I'm Sash, and then I'll KO him afterwards. He would have to sack him on to KO Infernape, and even then we break his Sash with Mach Punch, which is really nice, and puts him in range of Bullet Punch. So yeah, Infernape, again, just hitting things hard. The next mon, I was looking for a rocker, and I was considering Diancie, but really what works out best is Druddigon. We're bringing Druddigon for the first time. It's running Dragon Tail, Earthquake, Sucker Punch, and Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock, I want chip damage, and it'll be really helpful for, especially for things like Delphox, which could get a little bit out of hand. Sucker Punch does 50-60%, maybe even 70% to Delphox, which is something I was relatively weak to, so that's why I use that move for. Earthquake is there for just general coverage, like Skuntank, of course, like Empoleon, which this thing takes on pretty decently as long as it doesn't get burnt. And then Dragon Tail is there to shuffle things around. It does a lot to things that don't resist it, and building up Stealth Rock damage is really important. In addition to tanking hits decently well and doing like decent amount of damage back with Rough Skin and Rocky Helmet. And this thing can actually take Leech Life into Superpower from Buzzwole, or two superpowers in a row. So this is one way I plan on actually sort of dealing with that. Also, if he wants to set up with one of his mons, whether it's Buzzwole getting a boost or or Minior, I at least tank one hit and can get it out of there. So yeah, Druddigon. The next mon is Gengar. I alluded to it earlier, but we're bringing a Life Orb Gengar that hits really hard. If it is a also, I'll get to Sucker Punch real quick, but Psychic is there for Venusaur. It does 55-65% to an offensive one, and it 2-hit KOs a defensive one. But I also have Shadow Ball and Sludge Wave for general coverage. Shadow Ball hits things like Delphox, it hits a lot of things neutrally. It hits Kofagrigus, which is really important. Sludge Wave hits a lot as well. It hits a defensive Venusaur for like 44-48%. So if rocks are up and there's a little bit of chip, I don't have to risk going for Psychic and having him go into Weavile on the Psychic, and then of course KOing my Gengar. And again, Sucker Punch, it does around 30-ish% to Delphox. So after rocks, after Druddigon Sucker Punch, after Gengar Sucker Punch, between the three of those, I should be able to put in work against it because I was pretty weak to it. Also, this means that if Dugtrio wants to try to switch in on me with a Sash, it can't take a Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave, or Psychic into Sucker Punch. So yeah, it prevents him from switching in his Dugtrio on my Gengar. And if it's really weakened, it could KO it, but like it doesn't really do much damage. Same goes for Weavile. It can't take a Shadow Ball or Sludge Wave into Sucker Punch after it's switched into rocks a couple times. So yeah, it's pretty important. Sludge Wave is also there for Sylveon. I don't anticipate him bringing her bringing Sylveon, so I didn't bring a lot of counters for it, I guess. But Bullet Punch almost OHKOs it if it's not super defensive, and Sludge Wave does a ton to it. So yeah, this thing can put in work. And then lastly is Drapion. We're running a Black Sludge Drapion that is careful. It's very specially defensive so that we take 2 hits from a modest Delphox that's Scarfed. No matter what. If it's not Scarf, other mons on my team deal with it, no problem. But Knockoff does a ton to Delphox. It does a lot to just about everything, except for Mega Venusaur and Buzzwole. And so I anticipate Buzzwole being a switch-in to this Drapion. So to prevent it from subbing up or even just hitting me really hard in particular or anything like that, I brought HP Flying, which does 55-65% to it. So it cannot set up on me, which is something I was really afraid of. Earthquake is there for Electivire, Skuntank if necessary, Empoleon, and Taunt is there for Pyukumuku, because Taunt completely shuts down Pyukumuku. So that's the team. I'm not really sure how the battle's going to go. I'm confident I can win, of course. I prepped really well. Big threats, Electivire and Delphox and Venusaur, in my opinion. Depending on, we'll have to play around Weavile and Dugtrio, depending on if she brings them. And overall, it's going to be difficult to play offensively. I did bring a slightly bulkier team this time around, so I can maybe afford to make in a couple switch-ins, but I don't like playing risky, as I have mentioned every single team building, every single battle video, with hyper offense and players that I can't really gauge their skill or their mentality, especially given I've never played Sarah before. So anyways, I hope you guys are cheering for me. I hope you guys are excited for the battle. But until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.